Hey, Jimbo, you ready for this deal?
Geronimo.
Old stories like long-lost friends, rodeos and late-night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, friends and neighbors. Time once again for the Cowboys of the Osage podcast with your host, Jimbo Snively and Cody Garnett. Now let's sing a little bit about it. Cowboys of the Osage, riding once again. Always got some time for a friend. And here they are, the Cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum and the Buck and Flamingo Turquoise Shop, both located in historic downtown Husk, Oklahoma. Hey, it's old Cody over here, and as always, I have my main man with me. I think it's more like Geronimo.
Yeah.
Jimbo Snively. Good to see you, Jimbo. Who do we have this morning?
Hey, Cody boy, it's another great day in Osage, man. And Cody, he's been called the ambassador of the Western industry.
That's pretty big words.
That's pretty big words. Anyway, and I'm talking about Mr. Butch Morgan. He's been 3 decades with the Western Horseman, biggest Western magazine out there, you know.
Can't think of a bigger one.
He was a trick rider as a young man in the rodeos, went to all the major rodeos as a trick rider.
Wow.
I don't think we've ever had a trick rider on here before.
Not a true blue one.
Not a real one. Well, a bunch of wannabes. But anyway.
I did some tricky stuff, but it was all on an accident.
I know it. And he's a national final steer roper. He's a heck of a team roper and just an all-around great Westerner. And we're just happy to have him with us. Butch, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Well, I appreciate you guys calling. That's quite a build-up for an old guy from Beggs, Wyoming.
Yeah. Where is Beggs, Wyoming? There's a Beggs, Oklahoma, but I don't guess I'm familiar with Beggs, Wyoming.
Beggs, Wyoming. Yeah, that's southern Wyoming. It's just right on the border, right across the line from Craig, Colorado, and Steamboat in that area, just over the line in Wyoming.
Wow, that's pretty country in there.
Little Snake River country.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. So that's where you grew up?
That's where I grew up, yes, sir.
What made you want to be a cowboy, or did you always want to be a cowboy or a roper?
I grew up on a ranch in Wyoming, and then went to high school in Beggs, and I graduated from DuBois High School way up in the other part of Wyoming. My stepbrother was the superintendent up there, and I think my dad thought I'd be better taken care of under him than just running kind of wild. So in my high school days, I didn't think much about rodeo, and I thought I was going to be a basketball player and be about 6'5", run the 108.9, play for the Celtics, but that didn't work out either.
Well, I read somewhere you were like a 2-time All-Stater, so that's kind of big time.
Yeah, back in the little school, that was basketball country up there. I remember we'd play schools. We had a 6-man football team, and we'd play a team like Hannah, and they'd beat us like 45-0 in football, and the same kids would come back and play basketball, and we'd beat them 80-65. Just the same kid, just different sport. It was crazy.
Right. Huh.
Boy, how do y'all survive the winters up there when you're young?
It was a little tough. Yeah, when that snow gets to squeaking, it's cold.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I've always wondered what ranchers do up there. How do you keep everything alive all winter?
Well, they feed a lot of hay. I remember I was just a kid in 1949, like 9 years old, but I can still remember they had 100-foot snowdrifts around Rawlins and Beggs, and they'd send those big old B-29 airplanes in there, and they'd drop hay off to the country. Run a lot of sheep back in the early days. All the guys in Beggs would be hauling hay, and had a D8 cat plowing snow to try to get to all those sheep. And And it was kind of wild. They closed the school. Of course, all us kids, we thought that was a great deal. You know, we didn't realize just how bad it was. With some big bombers coming over our little town, it was pretty amazing.
Wow. I've never heard anything like that before, Jimbo.
You know,
Bombers dropping hay off in the winter?
Cody, here in Oklahoma, you wouldn't think of it, but we've had some bad winters. I remember back in the 70s that they actually put corn out for quail. The quail hunters and stuff got together. We had a stretch there in January where the ice and snow was on the ground for a long time, and the quail hunters pooled their money and rented some airplanes and dropped corn all over Osage County for quail.
Holy moly. I know they chop, we chop the ice in the ponds and stuff here with an axe or chainsaw, but I would assume it would get too thick up there to even chop.
Yeah, it was amazing. They had to, I'm not sure how they watered everything, but I'm sure they'd drive a cat out there and break the ice in some of them reservoirs and stuff, but they'd drop hay off them airplanes. It's pretty wild looking.
Huh. Well, when did you get into the rodeoing?
I guess when I first went to college, I'd roped a little as a kid, just around bags in there a little bit, learned to rope. And I roped a lot of sheep. My dad, when he wasn't in the picture, I'd rope sheep, but if he was around, I never did try to rope one because he wasn't really into that deal.
Right.
But he always wanted me to, rope. And then my brother-in-law, Bill Larimore, way back when Bill's passed away, he's the one that taught me to rope. And I guess when I got to college, I got a little more interested in it. I went to Casper on a basketball scholarship, and them guys were always out there practicing roping, so I kind of got into roping then.
Cody, I didn't mention his sister is Carol Gibson.
Oh, okay.
Tom Gibson's.
Tom, yeah, that's my brother. After Bill died, several years later, my sister married Tom, and I got a great story about that. When they had their wedding, and the big reception, everything was going on, and pretty quick, how dry Tom was.
Right.
He get up there and says, I've got an announcement to make. He says, I'm going to have this wedding annulled. And the place just gets quiet. Tom says, I just found out that Butch Morgan is going to be my brother-in-law. That was Tom. He was amazing. And my sister, she kind of raised me. I lost my mom when I was just a baby. And my sister, Carol, she helped raise me most of it.
Well, Tom was quite the guy. He was a real inventor. I don't even know what all he invented throughout his life, but all kinds of some oil filled equipment.
Yeah, and like coil tubing.
Yes, sir. I know.
He's got like 20 some patents.
Huh.
And the rope and shoot is amazing. There was a guy in California by the name of Terry Leonard. He's a great stunt man. In fact, he won the stunt man of the year. So he's in Vegas. And Tom's showing him that rope and shoot. And old Terry was just kind of looking at it. And Tom says, gravity is always on and gravity's free. Yeah. Terry looked at Tom. He said, well, Mr. Tom, he says, blondes and gravity damn near killed me.
He used to demonstrate that rope and shoot to everybody. He used to walk through the whole thing and show everybody how it works. He used to haul it around to all the big rope ends.
Oh, yeah, he was amazing. And that company's really doing well now. His grandson Austin's running it, and they're doing very well.
It's called Shoot Help, and you don't have to have any electricity or anything to run it, and it's all self-automated. It's the craziest thing, Jimbo.
Yeah, it's all
great
solar.
product.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It takes a smart man to invent something that simple.
And then you said he also, I do remember, he invented, I guess, the first thing, they could reuse that ground pipe or something. You could roll it or unroll it.
That I'm not sure.
The big pipe machine that he had that would roll them up in big
Oh,
spools.
yeah, I remember that. But I remember that thing, but I can't remember. Yeah, he was always inventing something. He had a squeeze chute, too, he's working on before he died. He was an amazing man, and he loved steer roping.
Yeah, he was a great friend to the steer ropers, for sure. And his wife,
Randy Moore.
His wife's carrying that on, too. She's still a big supporter of the steer ropers.
Oh, yeah, she donates to the roping, and they have the old seniors, and that was quite the deal.
Right.
What were you saying about Randy Moore? He was a good fellow, too.
I said him and Tom kind of started that seniors division.
Yep.
The old senior steer roping.
Yep. Well,
that kept a lot of old guys keep going.
Yeah, shoot, yeah. How'd you get into the trick riding?
Well, when I married my wife, Charlene, her brother was a trick rider. So, and hell, I had an old calf horse there. I tried to rope cows back then. Wasn't very good at it. Go to some amateur rodeo. So I just started messing around with him, and one thing led to another, and it come pretty easy to me. And I just started trick riding. Hell, we went all over the country. We worked for Harry Vold for 2 or 3 years up in Canada, and I went to Calgary, and we've been to all of Fort Worth and Denver, Colorado Springs. We were from Colorado Springs, so they hired us the first time. And then, we just started going from there. We had a pretty good crew. It was Dick Hammond and his wife, Bev, which is now married to Jack Sparrow in California. Then Karen Vold, that was Harry Vold's wife later on in life, and myself. And we were called the Fireballs. We went everywhere.
What did you actually do? What was your act?
You know what? I'd do a side drag, and then I'd come up backwards on the saddle. And, the croupers and split the neck and just all kinds of groundwork stuff.
How the heck do you teach a horse to not drag you down the fence if you're hanging off the side of it?
Well, you didn't. They just kept running off. You got over on the side or get into trouble, you're just going to hit the ground.
Back in the day, early rodeo, trick riding was a big deal. They even had contests. It was more of a contest than an exhibition.
It was.
In the same way.
That is true, yeah.
In the same way with trick ropers were the same way. They actually had contests at the rodeo, the best trick ropers.
Yeah. Those days were over. They were starting to bring one back one time, and we practiced up for it. It never did happen. But Dick Hammond, I'm trying to think the great old trick rider. I can't think his name. He won the bull riding 4 times and is a world champion trick rider. He taught Dick Griffith.
Yeah.
And he taught Dick Hammond to trick ride, then Dick taught me. So it was pretty amazing. There were some old guys back in the day that could darn sure do some cool stuff.
Did you teach anybody? Did you pass that on to anybody?
No, not really. I trick rode 4 or 5 years, then we started a family, and I taught. I just kind of had to kick back and got. I went to college, finished college, was a school teacher, and kind of, jackpotted on the side and went to a few rodeos and stuff like that.
Mostly team roping? What were you doing?
Yeah.
I read there where you did quite a bit of quite a bit of tie-down team roping early on, didn't you?
Yeah, back in the day, that was a pretty fun deal. You get some wrecks in that thing.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was trick riding Tucson. There's a guy by the name of Jimbo Wales. Well, Dick Yates and I were practicing, and I got Dick in the V and hit him, broke his leg. I was healing, so old Roy Wales, he said, well, you can rope for my son at Tucson. And I just got the trick riding, and he walks over there, and he says, is there a Butch Morgan around here? And I got a red trick riding. I said, oh, yeah, that's me. And he looks at me like, who in the hell are you? And I think we won 3rd or 4th in the round, placed the average or something. Anyway, we did a lot of that stuff. It was a great event back then.
Who were some of the top team ropers back then, tie-down team ropers?
Wald Arnold and Wald Arnold. He was a great one. Art Arnold might have been the best. Him and Joe Glenn, they were great back in the day. Joe was an old world champion. That Art Arnold, he could get off and tie that knot. And then Carl Wilkins was another one that could get off and tie that square knot. I mean, he was like unbelievable.
Hey, Jimbo, explain to everybody exactly what this team tying is, because it's a lost event. It's a lost art. Nobody does it anymore. Can you explain to everybody listening on how it's done? Or you, Butch, real quick?
Well, everybody, the header and heeler are both tied hard and fast to the horn. The header will run up there and head him and get him out. Then the heeler ropes him, then just, takes off and jerks the steer down. The header has to get off the horse and run down there and put a square knot on the 2 hind legs.
And listen up, everybody. This is what team roping was back in the day. There wasn't. This is what all team roping was. There wasn't even dally.
That's what it all was. That's true. And you'd practice tying that knot all the time. With your take it out of your and put it around your leg and slap your hand, try to get that knot tied. It was a heck of a deal. And you could. I jerked the horn out of the saddle one time. I mean, it would tear up some stuff.
Explain what that V is for everybody. That you said you broke Dick Yates's leg in the V when y'all were practicing.
Yeah.
Explain what that is real quick.
Dick had to steer, and you kind of turn off left, and the heeler comes in and heads him, and then you take off, and there's that big V where that horse, the heading horse is running off, and then the heeling horse is leaving. There's that big V in the center where the steer's off to the right. And when things get tight, here comes this steer left, and the header's getting off, running down the time that steer hit Dick. Broke his leg. A lot of times you would jump over the steers when they're coming that fast or duck under them. They'd shoot them over the top of you.
Did the steers have to stay tied for any amount of seconds, or just when the run was done, the run was done?
Yeah, when the run was done, it was over. And it was good if you could rope, if them heelers could rope 2 feet, because you didn't have to, if they roped the leg, they had to give you some slack so you could get those legs together to tie that knot.
Oh, there wasn't any penalty for roping one leg back then?
No. The only penalty was it just took you a little longer to get them tied because the heeler had to ride up and give you a little slack so you could get those legs together and tie that knot.
And a lot of people don't even realize that when the team roping went to the national finals, when they had in the national finals, they did this at the national finals too, didn't they, Butch?
They did. They dallied 5 and they tied down 5. And that was way back, I guess, in the, I'm trying to think early 70s or something, but maybe, I'm not sure.
It went through the early 70s.
Yeah, they used to dally 5 and tie down 5 finals.
I would assume the very first one, Jimbo, in Clayton, New Mexico, they probably tied them all down, did they?
Well, that's what I was just sitting here thinking. I'm guessing they did, but I can't remember. I mean,
I can't either.
I can't. I was there.
I remember it was at Clayton.
Yeah, I was there. I was 3 years old, and my dad actually opened the chute for all of them that year. It was really cold. It was really cold. Of course, Joe, my grandfather, and Jim, and Uncle Joe were there competing, and my dad went out there and they gave him a job running the chute or opening the gate.
Well, he didn't tell. His dad ended up 16th in the world, so he went on out with them, thinking somebody might not show up.
Yeah, they told him to bring a horse, that somebody would probably drop out or something. So I guess
he ends up working the chute gate.
Yeah, and I guess they felt bad because he got out there and nobody dropped out, and they made him bring a horse out there, so they gave him that job and paid him $200 a day to do it. Which
That's a lot of money back then.
That's pretty good money. But the only thing was he was the coldest guy there because he had to sit up there and open that chute for both the team roping and the steer roping. He got to go get in the car during the barrel racing, but it was a terrible cold day or cold week.
Well, they had that in November, wasn't it?
No, it was early, but they just had an unbelievable cold northern come through.
Yeah, I remember the old finals in Laramie used to be in November, and it could get a little frosty and cold up there.
Yeah.
I always thought that was crazy as heck to have an outdoor national finals in November in Wyoming. I mean, holy moly.
And the wind would blow just a little.
They were still having it in September in 61, and Joe said that they had a big snow come in, and they used tractors and pushed up all the snow in a big pile there in front of the bucking chutes, and they roped with a pile of snow in front of the bucking chutes. Yeah.
Them guys were pretty tough back in them days.
I think that ground was a little hard.
Might have been.
Yeah. It's sliding pretty easy when it froze.
You mentioned tying that square knot. You know, I remember my dad teaching me how to. It was all the way you put it in your hands. You know, and
you slap your hands together.
You just slap your hands together just fast. You can slap your hands together. You could tie that knot. And I used to do that on my leg, just like Butch talked, and other kids would do that. And now they wouldn't. Nobody even have a clue how to even do it now. Kids anyway. You know, you wouldn't even think about it.
It had to be a square knot too, right? Not a granny knot or any other kind of knot.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. It had to be a square knot.
I think so.
I don't really remember, but I know it probably had to be because that's all we practiced.
Yeah, and that's the only way you could put it together that fast. And it was all, like I say, it was all the way you put it on your fingers. You know, started with it,
right?
And then you just do that, and it would tie that knot. I wouldn't remember how to do it now, but
it's amazing that you don't see it too much anymore. But I bet there's a lot of team roping today that don't know how their event originated. Yeah.
And I
bet you're right.
You mentioned Art Arnold. You know, his dad was the great old steer roper Carl Arnold. Did you ever know him?
I didn't know him, but I knew of him.
Yeah. He's the one that roped all them match ropers with Bob Crosby back in the day.
Yeah,
pretty famous.
Yeah, that was the deal back then. Them big match ropings.
Right.
And they had those good invitational ropings around, kind of what I was going to. Those were great ropings.
Yeah. How'd you get started steer roping, Butch?
We had a trophy business, and I couldn't go to all the team ropes, so you couldn't keep a good partner if you couldn't go to all of them. So my wife said, "Why don't you try that steer rope?" And I said, "That's not a bad idea." So I looked around, and there's a guy in New Mexico that caught my name, Olin Young. Might have been the greatest steer roper ever. So I took my horse down there. See if he'd train him. He said he would. And I kind of got started with Olin. He was a perfectionist. They didn't have arm wraps back then. I mean, he wrapped all his steers with gunny sacks.
Yep.
And I remember one time we were practicing, the steer hits the fence and broke a board on his fence. So he didn't say anything. He just got off on Cincy's horse and went and tied him up. So I did the same. I'm just trying to follow along. I wasn't sure. So he went and got another board, took that one off, found the nails out, got another board, sawed it off, put it back up where it was, and then painted it before we roped again.
Yeah.
So it was the same color as it was.
At our house, we'd have been like, someone go stand over there in that hole on the fence so they don't jump through it so we can keep roping.
Yeah.
So that's true. Olin, now he was that guy was such an amazing guy. I just loved Olin Young. He was an amazing guy. He's the one that got me started.
I always tell people he roped like I wanted to rope. He was just such a perfectionist.
Oh man, the times we roped his house, he never crippled a steer. He never broke a horn. He never did nothing wrong.
Right.
It was always perfect.
Right.
I remember one time they're doing an interview with somebody, and I happened to be standing there listening to it, and he said, "Olin, how was the fastest one you ever tied?" And he says, "Oh, I don't know, around 13 probably." And I wrote up, I said, "He forgot to tell you he ties them all in 13.
Right. Right. I remember as a kid over at the slack over at, I think it was at McAllister, and I was sitting there watching the slack one morning, and he was just starting to rope steers. This would have been like 65 or something, and he roped 2 steers right in front of me and tied them both in 14. They were just identical runs, and he roped. One thing I remember about him, when he pulled his slack, you couldn't hardly get your finger in between the rope and the steer's head. The slack was always tight. Same way with calves. He just burned it on them, and there would never be any slack around the calf's neck. That's what I remember about his roping.
Everything was just tight, just walk. He'd just get it on them like nice.
Yeah.
You got another connection with Olin, don't you, Jimbo? Didn't he buy that great black horse off your grandpa?
No, that was Don McLaughlin.
Don McLaughlin. Oh, crap.
Yeah.
I'm stupid sometimes.
Yeah.
That guy helped me a lot, too, going down the road. Don, I never could read cattle because I'd always travel with him. And he'd always say, "Hey, you got the good one, or this one runs." He could look at a pen of steers and know exactly what they were.
Oh, yeah, those old-timers could look at those steers, and if they had big feet or sway back, or they knew whether they was going to try to get up or how fast they was going to run or anything about them.
When I was hauling them around for my dad, Jimbo, I knew every one of them by first, middle, and last name. Every steer on the truck.
Yeah.
As my son, he went to get some steers one time first to rope. The guy said, "You want to cut him?" He said, "Yeah, I better get one of every color so my dad can remember which one they are."
Well, who are some of the other good steer ropers that were going back then when you were going?
Oh, Sonny Davis was an amazing guy. I mean, he was, when they called his name, everybody, whatever you were doing, you just stopped and went and watched him rope.
Yeah, that's what I tell Cody that all the time. When you were a kid, I was just a kid. When you heard Sonny Davis' name, you stopped what you were doing, like you said, and you walked up over the fence.
Yeah, Marvin Cantrell.
Yeah,
he was a great roper back in those days. Jimmy Moore from Wyoming, J.R. Quennell from Wyoming, some of my old buddies up there. They didn't go much, but just enough to, back in the day, if you won something at Cheyenne, you just about made the finals way back when. And,
right.
And Don McLaughlin, he was an amazing guy. And of course, Phil Line, he could win whatever he wanted to do. If he wanted to be a bronc rider, he'd have been a champion bronc rider. I mean, he could do anything.
Right.
I think he should be right up top of everyone's Mount Rushmore, old Phil. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Butch.
No, that's great. But, unbelievable, that guy.
Yeah.
And then Walt Arnold, he was pretty damn solid, too, I'll tell you. He was a great guy. I loved Walt. But those guys always try to help you. And it's funny, back then, CBs were coming in. Everybody had a CB radio. And I had a van and a one-horse inline. They called me the hippie tripper.
You mentioned Jim Moore. His dad was for those who don't know, was Bob Moore, which was a Wyoming rancher, and he roped pretty good too. Bob roped pretty good.
Yeah, roped real good.
Did you ever know?
There's a lot of guys up there.
Did you ever know a guy up there by the name of Carl Sawyer?
I did. I didn't know him well, but I knew him. Yeah. That guy was a good hand.
He was a great friend of our family. Him and my grandpa were really good friends. He used to come down here and stay with us, and just a swell guy. He had a trucking company up there at Torrington.
Yep. Another great old roper back. He was past he was done when I started with Waldo Haythorne. Old Waldo, he was a great guy.
Yep.
You know who
those guys used to.
You know who else is a great
They used
roper?
to travel around with their old Cadillacs and their inline trailers. Some old guys, they had more damn fun. That's the cool deal.
Yeah, everybody drove cars back then, and they had big engines in them, and they'd get up and down the highway, couldn't they?
They sure could.
90 mile an hour.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
For them guys to pull 2 horses with a car 90 mile an hour up there in those good highways up there where there wasn't any traffic or nothing.
Ain't that where Schultz's trailer came off the ball a couple times right up in
Somewhere
that country?
up in there, it killed that 2 horses the first time, and then the next year, almost an identical place, it come loose again. It didn't kill a horse then, but the trailer come loose, went over there against the fence, and the old farmer come up there and said, he's talking to Schultz, and he said, you're not going to believe it, but some son of a buck in this exact same spot did the same thing last year. And Schultz said, I'm that son of a buck. I'm that same son of a buck.
Now, I got to watch those guys roping out as a kid, and they were just in awe. They had them great horses, old Popcorn and Peanuts. And I mean, I used to watch them as a kid. They used to have a big roping in Encampment, Wyoming. And I remember going over there and watching them steer ropers, and I went, man, them guys are unbelievable.
Winner take all,
Yeah.
Big roping. That was a lot of money back, $1,000 entry fees and winner take all.
Yeah.
You know who else is a great roper from up in their country? And he's a little newer guy than some of those older timers you're talking about. But old Glenn Barlow. Boy, howdy, that guy.
Glenn
could rope, steers right with all the guys from down here in Oklahoma and Texas.
He was a great roper. And let me tell you something else about Glenn. He was a snaffle bit guy, too. He won the snaffle bit fraternity one year. He was a good horseman, that kid. And he was an artist, too. He did some bronzes. He was a talented guy, Glenn Barlow.
Is he still alive?
I think so. I think the first time he ever went to Cubs, I took him. That was a mistake. Then went kicking all our butts.
Yeah. We were staying at his house one time during the summer run up there in, I don't know where we were going, some rodeos. And we were outside playing in his yard. He had a big old ranch or something there, best I remember. And him and my dad came running up in a big hurry, and there was something major going on, and we didn't know what was going on. But they could see this wild dog running towards us from like a half a mile away. And they had to take care of that deal.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I remember about staying at Glenn Barlow's house.
Yeah, I bet they could shoot, too.
You know who other's another great steer roper from up there that I always thought roped real good? Harold Bumgardner.
Harold could do anything, that guy. And him and Jake Melton. Jake never roped many steers, but he could damn sure team rope. But Harold was a great roper, yeah. He come after me. He's a lot younger than I am, but he's a good cowboy. Another kid up there, Jim Evans. He roped
good.
He roped pretty good, and he had a great horse Cadillac he sold to Roy Cooper.
You remember that one time they had that yellow horse they got from Harry Vold, had the big HV on the hip of him. And Jim and his boy Jason both rode him. Jason ended up being a real great cowboy. Jason almost made the final.
Yeah, he roped steers very good.
Steers. But heck, Jim Evans did rope really good. I always hated seeing that guy coming because he always took a fair amount of our money.
Yeah, he was a good hand and a good guy too. I always liked him.
Did you know John Dalton, Butch?
I didn't. I knew about him and his family.
Sure.
The marriage, he was kind of into that group, and he was like the king of Pendleton. He could do no wrong in Pendleton, Oregon.
Right. Yeah, he was a good all-around hand. Bulldog pretty good, rope cast pretty good, and a good steer roper.
I did all kinds of wrong stuff up at Pendleton, Oregon, Jimbo. I'm not even kidding you.
Really?
Not in the arena, though.
I can't imagine. So. What's that bar up there?
I told John Dalton when
I
he
don't
topped
remember.
the hill heading for Middleton, he said, like, boys, I can smell the teepee smoke from here.
Yeah.
You know who the very best roper to ever come out of that country up there, though? I think probably the tops of the tops. Bobby Harris. I think.
Bobby Harris was an amazing. I rode in with his dad, Nick. Nick was a great athlete in high school, too. But Bobby Harris, he had the perfect, his heel loop, just a perfect swing. And then when he decided to rope steers, I mean, everybody was going for second. He was amazing.
He heels without a glove, Jimbo. Dallas.
Yeah.
Steel.
Him and JD Yates, they haven't worn a glove yet.
Yeah, JD Yates, JD Yates, I'd put him as right up there with Bobby. He's just one of the best pure ropers to ever live, period.
Yeah, so true. And they just put JD in the American Quarter Horse Association Hall of Fame, which well deserved. He's just a great roper, great horseman. And Bobby Harris and my nephew, Scott Larimore, he was in that group when they all went. And Scott went to finals 4 or 5 times. That's Carol's son in the team rope. And they all, JD and Bobby Harris and Scott and all them guys were about the same age. And they all roped very, very well.
That boy at JD's, he ain't no slouch either. Holy moly. Good Lord. I mean, he just is about as wicked as they come.
Yeah, he's right there at the top of the game.
You grew up not too far from old Alan Keller country. Were you very familiar with him?
Oh, Alan Keller, yeah. He lived in Montrose, or Olathe, Colorado. Of course, when I got married, I lived in Colorado Springs. Yeah, there was a talented guy.
Yeah, he bulldogged real good until he hurt his knee, kind of slowed him down a little bit. And then he...
Right, well, he won world champion steer roper one year.
And then he went to roping steers, and I don't think people expect him to do as well as he did, but dadgum, he roped good and had a good horse, and dadgum, he didn't win the world.
He told us he was the best header going that time, is what he told me and Jimbo one time.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a good hand.
Old Alan, he was the best, wasn't he?
Yeah. He's dandy.
He's still kicking. He was through Pawhuska not too long ago.
Yeah. Yeah,
I heard that, and then somebody told me he was at the Time event this year. Who did I see? I was talking to Old Barry at the American. He said he saw Alan up there.
Yeah.
At the Time event.
Yeah, he sure was.
He was there the last couple of years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you made the finals in '79. What was that like, Butch? That had to be a dream come true, didn't it?
Oh, it was a dream come true to me, because we didn't get to go to all of them because we had a trophy company and some kids and busy, and that was a dream come true to me. And then I didn't realize you had to enter. So, I'm just thinking, man, I get to go to finals. And Kay Blakely called me and says, "Are you excited about going to finals?" I said, "Man, I cannot wait." She said, "Well, you missed the entries." I said, "You had to enter?" He says, "Yeah, you have to enter the National Finals Rodeo." And I went, "Oh my God!" I just devastated. Well, don't worry, I entered you. But I didn't know you had to enter.
Right.
What all did you place in that year?
That was a pretty special deal for me.
How'd you do?
I think I won the 6th go around. I think I won $376. And I thought, God, there'll never be another poor day.
This is the best.
Yeah, back in those days, they were great. There was some great old ropers back in them. Terry McGinley from Ogallala, he used to put on a great roping at his place, and they used to give a hand-carved suitcase to the winner, and I always wanted to win that. Had a chance one year, and my last year, I could never get him on the ground.
Yeah, I remember.
So I lost the suitcase.
I remember Terry McGinley.
They, I think in 1980 or 81, maybe he won the average at the finals, Terry McGinley, and they're looking for him because his saddle's turned up somewhere in a thrift store somewhere, and someone just recently bought it. I called Troy Tiller just the other day trying to get a hold of the McGinley family because they're trying to get a hold of them to see if anybody wants this saddle.
You know what? Jesse James lives down here. I'm going to look his number up. I might have that, and I'll send that to you. That's Terry's son, Jess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somebody had contacted me on Facebook, and I guess they did all the back research on this saddle and knew where it came from and who had won it, but they're not the ones that had it for sale. So.
He won it twice, I think. Terry won the finals
I
twice.
think he did win the average twice.
He did. Maybe back-to-back, I'm not sure, but they're real close together.
Where did they have the finals when you went, Butch, in '79?
In Laramie.
Okay.
Laramie, Wyoming, and it was I was pretty excited to get there. It was fun. They had par mutual betting too.
I was going to ask you about that pari-mutuel betting. Did they used to take 16 to the national finals so they could run two heats of 8?
They did. That's exactly right. They did. And they had pari-mutuel betting. And then the Calcuttas back in those days were huge. They'd have some Calcuttas, and they were unbelievable. The money they'd spend on them Calcuttas.
Who would set the line on the guys on the pari-mutuel betting?
I don't even know.
Say Butch Morgan, he's 25 to 1 to win this go round or whatever.
I think
they just, everybody. I remember when I first started, hell, nobody knew who I was. Hyde Merritt, he'd always buy me. And then I got to where I was winning a little bit. He'd keep buying me. It was pretty cool.
I think they just set the odds, Cody, by the amount of money bet.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like in horse racing,
Yeah, and back then, the guys yeah, it seemed like everybody went to Calcutta. They knew who was who and all that. But they'd have Wyoming had that Wyoming Steer Association. Those were great ropers back then. That's kind of how I got started. A lot of guys. And they'd have a Calcutta at every one of those.
Seemed like my dad, he was telling me back when he first started roping steers, he was going up to the Wyoming Steer Roping Association. And he told me that he won it. And after that, you had to be living in a Wyoming or a state that touches Wyoming to be able to win it.
I'll be darned. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah,
or not, but
it could be. I mean, yeah, who knows? But that, hell yeah, might have to be for Wyoming to win it. But hell, I live in Colorado, so yeah, I don't know. They might have changed some rules. They didn't want them tough guys coming in and getting them, maybe.
Well, you were living in a neighboring state, so it wouldn't even affect you.
Yeah, maybe.
Another great Wyoming family is that Tillard family. Holy moly!
Oh my God!
There's a bunch of them.
Old Bud,
and they live a long ways from town too.
And they own all that land between town and where they live, I think.
Yeah, I called him up one time.
Old Bud, he was a great guy. Oh my God, he was just cool. Just him and his wife Betty, they were the greatest people ever.
He made the finals a time or two, I think. Bud did.
He did way back when, yeah.
Back in the day.
Then when I was going, there was Marty and Andy was the one that passed away of cancer. Then used to have a memorial roping every year for him, and everybody'd go there and we'd camp out at the Tillard Ranch, and everybody'd wear a white shirt because that's what Andy used to wear when he roped steers, with a white shirt.
Yeah, I went to it a few times, Jimbo. We would stay up there between rodeos and go to the Andy Tillard, and you had to wear a white shirt. If you didn't,
yeah, pretty cool.
You got no times. They wouldn't even let you run your steer. And me and Ralph Williams was up there one year, and Ralph lucked out and won the dang thing. And another one of their traditions is to throw you in this freezing cold water tank they have right by the arena. And it was made out of a great big tire, like a 10-foot tall tire off of a dump truck or something, and they'd cut the top off of it. Well, when they threw Ralph in, all that steel belting was coming out of the top, and he picked steel belt out of that tire, splinters out of his whole body for about a month after that.
So, the Tillard family, they're unbelievable people.
Did you ever roping they have up there on the polo field? What do they call that?
Don King Days.
Yeah, Don King
Days. Don King Days. No, I never did, and I regret it because the Colorado State Fair was always going on at the same time, and my wife and I, we showed some horses back then, and it seemed like we were always at the Colorado State Fair during that roping.
Yeah.
The
Don King Days. Yeah, I would love to have gone. One thing I regretted not going to that.
There's not too many guys from this country down here that even made it up to that roping very often, Jimbo, because you had to qualify throughout the year. That's their finals, I think, for the Wyoming Steer Roping Association.
Right.
I see.
And it's right before Pendleton. I think there's a few guys stopping now that might have made their finals going up, but yeah.
I remember we used to have the finals in Laramie, then we'd just leave there to go to Pendleton and start the year over.
Yeah. Huh. How'd you get affiliated with the Western Horseman, Butch?
I had a trophy camp. We sold it, and I didn't do very good on the sale. I wasn't very smart about that. And I was running Penrose Stadium in Colorado Springs, and I used to hang around with them guys all the time, Chuck King and Dick Spencer. You know, I just loved them guys. I'd be there all the time visiting. And then Dick was pretty sick, and they come and asked me. He said, you know, Dick passed away. And he said, he always wanted you to work for Western Horseman. We'd like to offer you a job. And Randy Whitty and Pat Close come over there, and they had one of those cabin half pickups, you know, where you just have to crawl in the second half of the truck. So we go to lunch, and they offered me a job, and of course I took it immediately. And I said, well, apparently a company car is out of the question. It just had that pickup.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the greatest things ever. You know, everything's for a reason. I sold my company, and I didn't do very good on the sale, and things were a little rough, and they offered me that position. And then, I mean, what a time in my life, it was the greatest thing ever happened to me. And I got to meet so many people and go so many places. And the first place they sent me was to Phoenix, Arizona. They used to have a rodeo down there. They wanted me to go down there. I don't know. I was down there and I roped 3 days and played golf too. And I went, damn, I even hate to take the check, but I did.
Were you a writer for him, Butch?
No, I was the director of marketing. Just, you know, trying to get more sales and stuff, meet people, and get our booth out and about.
I always wondered why they didn't have a whole rodeo section in the Western Horseman every month.
You know, we used to have a call pickup in the rodeo arena, and that was way back when I was there. Well, they used to have a little article Chuck King used to write, you know, called Pickup in the Rodeo Arena. And they still do a lot of stuff, but you know, the rodeo deal, but not like they used to.
Right. Are you still with them in any way?
You know, just in a small capacity. My title is ambassador. I go to a few events for them. You know, like we put a big roping on in Arizona, and I go down there and roping that and meet all the guys and thank them for coming, and you know, just cool stuff like that. And but that's about it. I'm no the day to day. Just maybe a few events I go to.
How does a print magazine survive in today's world, Butch?
You know what? It seemed like when COVID hit, our subscriptions went up.
Really?
Because people couldn't go and do anything, so they went to reading more.
Yeah. And
the magazine has survived. It started in 1936. And I think I taglined that magazine way back when. I called it Magazine for a Lifetime. I think when you first subscribe to it, you just keep it forever.
Right.
You know, we were in Europe one time to a thing called Equitana, and we give 25,000 magazines away over there just free to people come up, and they'd go Dankeschön, Bitteschön. And people would come up in their broken English from Germany, Italy, and that, and talk to us on our booth and barely could speak English and tell us they've been getting that magazine for 20 years. Now, that is impressive.
Yeah.
That just blew me away. But I think the old people, I grew up with the magazine, and so many, and probably you guys did too.
Right.
You know, it was always there on the table, and you couldn't wait when it come in. And it's tougher and tougher every year, but I think it's kind of like Kleenex. You know, you just have to have it.
Have to have it. Huh. Did you ever know the writer Willard Porter?
I didn't know him. He was gone before I got there. He did all the old steer roping stuff, and I used to read all that stuff that he used to write. He was a great guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he was quite a writer, and like you say, a good friend of the steer ropers for sure. Oh
yeah, he loved that, and I love old Chuck King. He was a great friend of the team ropers. You know, he'd always have team roping articles in there and stuff. And Dick Spencer, you know, he was a great guy, and he had Appaloosa horses and turquoise and all that stuff. You know, it just seemed like it went through different deals. Then the Morse family own it now, and they're doing a great job with it. Mr. Morse, he's raised horses for 40 years in South Carolina, and he just won the Remuda Award for AQHA for 2023. He said he'd been breeding horses for 40 years, and they finally realized who he was. And he's a great Western guy, too.
Speaking of awards, your wife, wasn't she just named the Western?
She just won the Woman of the West Award, right? She was on the cover of the January issue. This is a great story. We're sitting there, and I knew she's going to be on the cover.
Right.
And, of course, I never said a word to her, and we're talking one more look, and she said, I wonder what that January cover is going to be. I said, God, I hope it's a good one, honey. And then when she saw it, she cried, and I did too. I was unbelievable.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's great.
And she's a great cowgirl. She's won that ranch riding the world championship. I mean, and
she was a trick rider.
All
too,
my
with
kids
you, right?
are involved.
Yeah. What'd you think
She's a
about
pancreatic cancer survivor. She survived pancreatic cancer.
Boy, that's not easy to do.
2002, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, she's quite the lady.
Yeah, what'd you think about that award?
Oh my God, she was she cried when she saw it. Then we were supposed to go to Arizona to get the award, and we come back to the Interfarm. She got real sick on us. We had to send her to hospital 911. She was in intensive care 4 days, and she's got COPD, so she's on oxygen all the time now. But she starts her rehab today on her breathing and stuff. So she'll go 3 days a week for 2 months to rehab. So we're hoping that'll get her kind of back off that oxygen a little bit. But she's a fighter, so I'm sure she'll win.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Butch, were you ever affiliated with the AQHA PRCA Horse of the Year?
No, I never was in. I'm on that board of trustees for the Hall of Fame for the pro rodeo, but I had nothing to do with that. And I was a director on with AQHA. Was on some of their stuff, but I never had anything to do with that. No, it's a great program.
What's all this hubbub about Larry Mahan stuff with this PRCA?
Man, that's a
thing.
I'm not sure. They kept that pretty quiet from all of us guys. I think just the lawyers and the PRCA. But yeah, that was. I don't know.
We read some stuff that Bobby Brown put out about it, and I don't know. Made me scratch my head. Since you were a director, I thought maybe I'd ask you.
Yeah. No, it was a, and I'm not sure if it's even settled yet. I don't even know.
It's not a good look. I know that. It just something just.
I know Larry loved the Hall of Fame. I know that he was
right.
the director for many years.
When is the inductions every year?
In July, in Colorado Springs. I don't even know who they put in this year.
I can't remember either. But it is quite the museum up there.
Right.
Really, yeah, it is. It's a tribute to the Cowboys. I mean, there's some cool stuff. All the old guys we're talking about are in there.
Butch, if you were doing a Mount Rushmore of great Westerners, who would you put in it? They don't have to be cowboy. I mean, rodeo. They could be anything. Trick riders or historians.
You'd have to start with, maybe Red Steagle.
Okay,
that's a good one.
Cowboy Red. I mean, he's a great Western guy. Loves the rodeo, loves that. Of course, you'd have to put Larry Mahan up there. He's the guy that got it kind of all started around,
Right.
Did Red actually do any rodeoing? He acts like he did in his songs, like he bulldogged or something.
Yeah.
He used to rope.
Oh, okay.
Because they used to have those Ben Johnson ropings, those. And I roped with Red one time, and we're like 7'5" or something on a steer. And I've only got 19 fingers. He's only got 3 arms. He said, "We'll match anybody in the world who's got 3 arms and 19 fingers." That was Red Steagle. But I'd have to put him there, and
Larry Mahan.
Yeah.
Need 2 more.
Man, that's a tough question. There's so many great ones,
Yeah.
I mean, Ronald Reagan, what a guy he was. He was a Western guy. He loved the cowboy stuff. He's a member of the Rancho Vistadores. And
did you go out and cover his that big rodeo they had, the presidential rodeo for Western horsemen?
No, I sure didn't. I did not go there. But I remember they about killed Charlie Sampson.
What happened?
That rodeo. That bull broke all these bones in his face and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I forgot where it happened. Yeah.
There's some old guys back in the day, like Gene Ramble. My God, he was an amazing guy way back when. You'd probably have to put him around there somewhere.
He was a great cowboy. I mean, a lot of people just remember him as a team roper later on, but he was a bulldogger and a bronc rider both.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw one out. What about Ben Johnson?
Well, he'd be another one. Yeah. Yeah, he would have to go up there, Ben one. I mean, because he's done so much for our industry. He's amazing.
Were you ever around him much, Butch?
Ben Johnson, at those ropings, at those Ben Johnson celebrity deals he had, And I was lucky enough to go to some of those. And I remember I can't remember where we were. Anywhere in a restaurant eating, and the waitress comes up and want to know. He said, "I'll have a sirloin." He says, "What kind of a sirloin would you like?" He says, "A good one."
At those pro celebrity ropings that you were fortunate enough to be able to get involved in, did you ever get to watch him rope any?
Yeah, I got to roping all of them. That was a fun deal. I got to rope Buck Taylor, and there's another guy, he's a great guy, Buck.
Who's some of those stars that ropes a little better than you think they would?
Well, Buck, he didn't rope that bad. There's some stunt guys there, like John Miller's brother. He roped good. Ben and Mike McGaha, some of them stunt guys. And then, God, I can't think that big guy. No, there's a great big guy didn't rope too bad either. But it was amazing that, they rode their horses pretty decent and stuff like that. And then some of them couldn't ride a lick.
Did you ever get to watch Ben rope specifically?
No. I think I've watched him rope a couple of steers at those pro celebrities. I mean, he could stick it on one. It was amazing how them guys tied onto the horse, just let the little steer cut out the end, and he could run up there and get them.
What was your favorite rodeo to enter every year, or just go to?
Well, those two of them I really loved. I loved Pendleton, probably my favorite rodeo, and then Cheyenne, of course. I love Cheyenne. It was close to me, but Pendleton, there was just something about Pendleton. I mean, they love the cowboys up there. They give you free hay, free grain, free stall. They just, whatever you wanted, they love the cowboys. They love the steer ropers.
I don't think there's a rodeo cowboy that would argue with you on that.
Oh, just a great rodeo. It's a fun deal. I mean, you had to make your room reservations a year in advance. When we'd leave, we'd just make a room reservation for the next year.
What about old Cheyenne? On changing up a lot of their history, how they run the rodeo and stuff? I don't know. They say they're all about the history, but in tradition.
Yeah, it used to be anybody can enter that deal. They used to have, anybody can enter that. A lot of them old steer ropers that quit, they'd always come back and enter Cheyenne, and you just love to see them back in. They might not win nothing, but by God, they entered old Cheyenne. That was the main deal. That everybody'd stay at Little America, and they brought a lot of money into that town. And then they used to have the senior steer roping there. Then they got to do that. And they kind of quit that. So I don't know.
I was staying at Little America one time, and with Jim Davis's son, Bryce Davis, me and him, and they left us there. I don't know what they went out and done, and they said if you get hungry or anything, just go up to the restaurant, and, charge it to the room. Well, we started buying all the kids in the whole place food and ice cream and stuff, and run up like a $500 bill. That's the last time they left us at the Little America alone with the charge account.
Yeah, that was a fun deal. Little America, that was the deal. Go watch the slack. Man, it was cool. I remember the first entered Cheyenne, Olin Young. I asked Olin if he'd hold my horse in there. And, man, I'm wanting to get out. Now, I get one rope pretty fast, and it took me all day to get him tied. I was probably like 17 or something. I think I placed 4th or 5th or something, And I was just so excited. I went and asked Olin. I said, hey, on my second steer, will you help me hold my horse box? He says, yes, but you got to quit spurring him.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm wanting out of there, and I thought he'd let him all the way to Chugwater, but I guess I didn't.
I've seen guys kick a circle in there with a guy just leading them around in a circle.
Yeah. And now, after that, I'd just be backing my horse up and nodding.
Now they don't even have walking fresh steers, and I think they back the score off to 20 feet instead of 30. Yeah,
it used to be the old time deal. Man, old Cheyenne, that was just something to be there.
Good times in old Cheyenne.
Yeah, it was amazing.
You mentioned those old timers coming back there to rope. I remember in 1968 getting to see Ike Rude rope a steer up there, and he had to be like 74 maybe. in 1968. But he roped him just right across the line and had trouble getting off and had trouble tying him. He was a long time, but the crowd just went crazy, you know.
Well, see, that's what was so great about them. You go like to go up there and see them old guys enter. By God, they'd be spitting about, by God, you know, this whole steer, he's going to walk out. He's going to, you know, you got to just listen to him talk was pretty cool back in the day.
Yeah.
And I like a lot of the steer roper. I remember one time I'm at the steer roping up there, and they asked me, he says, what about the steers today and the ones you had? I said, I'm just glad these guys that are roping today didn't rope when we roped back in my day, because we wouldn't win nothing.
But I never will forget getting to see him rope, and that's something that's missing today, you know, when they limit the entries like they do up there.
Yeah, but they used to let everybody go there.
Yeah, they'd have 200 and some steer ropers, you know, there in this.
Well, I remember one year, Joe Green, the bull rider, you know, he enters the steer rope and wins the go-around. There's like 70 steer ropers. The next year, there's 170. He figured out if he could win, anybody could, but they forgot Joe could rope steers.
Yeah, he made
Joe Green, he could rope steers.
Yeah, Joe was a good friend of mine. His son, I just talked to him yesterday on the phone, old Rendon. He called me out of the blue.
Yeah.
And Joe was a roping dude, buddy.
He could do it, and a lot of them guys didn't think so, but he was the real deal.
He had a good eye for a horse, too.
Yeah. It was pretty funny. I said, you're the one that raised all the money in Cheyenne, Joe. They're all in her now, buddy.
Yeah,
he was a good one.
Yeah, he was a great guy. I always loved hanging out with old Joe.
Yeah, he'd always have a story to tell you.
You know what? Some of my best memory of Cheyenne is I used to watch all the adults play cards for big money out in the parking lot.
Play pitch.
They'd play pitch and 2-card guts, one of the two.
Yeah.
And
I remember one year I flew to Pendleton. I was trick riding my last one up there, and I'm on the airplane, and there's Waldo Haythorne and Jim Laycock had them Laycock trailers, a bunch of old guys, and they're playing cards in the back of this airplane. And there's $100 bills everywhere. And I'm watching, and old Waldo, he goes, the one in this game? Oh, no, sir. No. And I was broke anyway. And we get off that airplane, takes this $100 bills and pokes in my pocket. He says, you might need that later, son. I'll never forget it. I tried to pay him back 100 times. He'd never take it. And I went to his horse sale that year, the last horse sale he was. I said, I still owe you that 100. He says, no, you don't owe me a damn thing.
Yeah.
That was Waldo Haythorne. I'll never forget it.
all them Haythorns are good guys, as far as I know.
Oh, they're great. Craig, and I don't know the boys. I know Craig pretty well, but Waldo, he's a big hero of mine.
Yep. Howard, he roped in the first national finals.
He's still alive, isn't he? Or is he?
As far as I know.
Getting close to 100 years old.
I can't answer that.
Yeah, I think he is. Last I knew he was.
Well, he sure might be.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we learned that the hard way.
Yeah, I think he and Joe, my Uncle Joe's the only two living from the first national finals. Steer roping.
Really?
Yep.
That's pretty cool right there.
Yep.
And they roped some healthy steers back then.
Yeah, they did.
Well, Butch, we sure appreciate you spending some of your time
I
with us
appreciate
today.
you guys calling. It was great. You do a great job back there at that museum. I haven't ever been there, but I'm going to make it a point to come by and see it.
Why don't you send Western Horseman our way? That might help us out a little bit.
You know what? I will. Text me that address.
You got it. You got it.
And I'll put you on that comp list. We'll get you that magazine.
I can't believe he trick rode with Karen Vold before she was married to Harry.
Oh.
Yep.
Ain't that something?
Her name was Womack.
Well, we talked about, Cody, how many times have we talked about what a small circle rodeo is? You know, when you get
Isn't it amazing?
It sure is. Everybody knows everybody, or related to everybody, or something, connected in some way.
Everybody will help everybody,
Yeah,
too. That's
everybody
what's
will
pretty cool, too.
You could put Harry and his wife on that Mount Rushmore, honestly.
You could, yeah.
They've done about as much for Western Way of Life, and I think Harry Vold, I've heard, saved the PRCA a couple times back in the day. Single-handedly,
He sure
almost.
could have. I remember when you get on the phone, this is Harry Vold, Vision Dicker, OLD.
He was a good guy.
He was a great guy. He helped us a lot. We're trick riding. He hired us, and away we went.
Well, if he said it was going to be that way, by golly, it just was that way.
handshake. We never signed a contract or nothing. He said, be up here. And by God, we showed up, went to all them rodeos. He was great.
The first time we had the steers at Cheyenne, that's the way it was with Harry. He just said, well, all right, boys, you got her. Do good.
Yeah. Yeah, that was old Harry.
Well, we sure appreciate you coming on today, Butch. God, this was a good one, Jimbo.
It sure was, Butch. And like I say,
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And I'll get that magazine to you.
come up and see us and holler at us, and we'll give you a tour of the museum and
Perfect.
show you around Pawhuska.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Sounds great. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Butch.
Whew.
Bye-bye.
Well, Jimbo, that was a good one.
Another good one.
Hey, everybody, when you get here in town, don't forget to stop by the museum. Don't forget to stop by the turquoise shop, and we'll have our new restaurant open, Saucy Calf, traditional Native American food.
Can't wait.
It's all right here within a block of each other.
Right.
So get over here and see us, and we'll see y'all next week.
Later.